I'm Lakshmi Iyer. I am the editor and co-founder of Biotech.Asia. The lovely lady here, she is Sandhya Sriram. She is my co-founder, and we are the hosts for the event today. And we are extremely happy to invite you. And you may be wondering why probably our topic says how to pitch to a biotech investor, specifically why a biotech or a healthcare investor. It could be probably anyone. So the reason we started this workshop series was because after speaking to many biotechs and healthcare startups as a part of our job, we realized this is the need of the hour. So let me give you an example. We spoke to a startup which was telling us that we are a biotech startup and we tried to pitch to several grant committees and investors, and they didn't understand much about healthcare startups, and we had asked for a microscope which costs about $200,000, and it will really help us in improving our product and our service. So we really wanted that, but they didn't understand that. They thought it's a frivolous and a good to have thing. That's why we are asking it. So we really hope that people who are sitting on the grant committee, the investors, all understand what it is to pitch. So that is why we actually started this entire workshop series. So in last 2 months, in March, we had the event How to Pitch, Make an Elevator Pitch. And this is about how to pitch to a biotech investor who knows your field very well. And we'll have the third workshop, which will be about how to pitch to a non-biotech investor. Because as you may be aware, there are so many people who are roaming around with money now, and they want to invest, and they want to invest in the in thing, which is healthcare. And how to pitch to them, being in our space. So Biotech.Asia basically was established with this core intention of giving a platform for all biotech and healthcare startups to be featured. So if any of you here would like to be featured on our website, then please do get in touch with us. And we have covered up till close to 60 startups till now, and we are doing much more, as much as we could, and we have some great correspondents here who are here and outside who are helping us do it. We have about 60 writers all over the world who are helping us do it. And basically, so today what you can look forward from the event is we have Eddie Lee, who is the managing partner of Coffee Ventures, who will be speaking about how to what does an investor look forward to in a pitch deck. And Dr. Yan Chong will speak about how did they do the pitch deck, and he will give you some pointers. He will not exactly tell you what they did in the pitch deck, but some pointers he will give you. And please feel free to ask any questions. And you might be probably wondering what is the sticker which you have been given. So if you have a golden badge, then it means you're part of the startup community. So it will help you, meet each other and discuss more about what are the problems you have and how you have dealt with it. And we are extremely thankful to our sponsors, which is NUS Enterprise, who has been our venue sponsor, and URA, who is our workshop sponsor. So we were expecting the co-founder of URA, who hasn't reached yet. But then URA is actually a wonderful product. They are manufacturing micellar glucosamine creams, which actually is through a patented transdermal delivery system. So what it basically does is you use the cream, it increases the bioavailability of the glucosamine creams, which helps in muscle, bone and joint relief. Yes. So they are already in the market. They are already in Watson's and in many hospitals and Unity and Guardian. So if he comes, then it will be great. You actually have an example of someone who has gone to the market with an invention which he made. So we hope he comes and you can join in, and we'd like to thank them too. So please relax and listen to the experts, and I would like to now introduce you to our correspondent Vidya Bharati, who will give you a short intro about Eddie.
Thank you, Lakshmi. Okay. Good evening, everyone. So I'm on behalf of Biotech.Asia. I'm very pleased to introduce to you Dr. Eddie Lee, the managing partner of Coffee Ventures, as well as the consulting professor at Stanford University. Dr. Eddie Lee has invested in and supported more than 50 startups, predominantly in the US, Singapore, and Indonesia. His interest areas include mobile health, big data, IoT, and marketplaces. He has recently relocated from Silicon Valley to Southeast Asia to tackle the unmet needs in our emerging markets. He works with entrepreneurs in product development, enterprise partnership, M&A exit, and entering international markets such as US, Japan, Singapore, and Indonesia. At Stanford University, Dr. Eddie also concurrently serves as the consulting professor in the School of Medicine, where he connects academic projects with commercial opportunities. He's also a mentor at Stanford Startup Incubator, where he provides startups with cross-border know-how. During his career at Stanford, Singapore, and Australia, he has devised medical imaging technology for visualizing stem cell migration and therapy. He used to design semiconductor chips at Marvell, a NASDAQ-listed Southeast Asia success story, which he hopes his portfolio startups could one day emulate. So please give it up to Dr. Eddie Lee.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction. So it's a pleasure to be here to talk about this topic. Pitching to investor is a topic that is close to heart for every entrepreneur. It is something that it seems to be out of the norm for an entrepreneur to do while we are every day supposedly working on a product, making it better, bringing it to market, who's a customer. But pitching, it seems to fall out of place from the whole life cycle, from the whole day's to do for any entrepreneur. But I'll share with you actually that this is an essential part of your life, your work as an entrepreneur. So let me see. Okay, so today I'll be talking about what goes in a pitch deck, but bear in mind that there's no hard and fast rule. I do not have a template on what is on the first slide, the second slide, third, fourth, how many slides should it run. Essentially, look at the pitch deck as a tool, right, to tell your story. And before I go further, can I have a show of hands? Who is a scientist over here? Who's scientifically trained, academically trained? Almost everyone. Who comes from the business world? Okay, we got a good balance. So you guys will probably be, if you haven't been in the biotech business for a long time, you might be looking at problems from very different point of view. And you'll be working with colleagues, co-founders with very different viewpoints as well. Okay, and you appreciate different parts of this talk about what should go in a pitch deck. So the pitch deck, the first part, okay, remember it's an aid for you to tell the story. The beginning of the story, one suggestion is tell the problem. This could be a single statement that you make. What is the problem that is affecting the patients that you are dealing with right now? Okay, it could be a single statement. For example, a typical test, I was just chatting with Yan Chong about it, amniocentesis to test for trisomy, right? It affects high age pregnancy, one in how many pregnancies. This is resulting in poor quality of life. And the solution is to test for Down syndrome for high risk pregnancy. And how you're going to do it is through amniocentesis, right? So it has to be very clear, very crisp, easy for anyone to understand. And at this point, things should be very general, such that anyone, even people without biotech background, can understand. It's easy to assume that the person reading should have some information, some knowledge about health technology. But put all those assumptions aside, put all the jargons away from your deck as much as possible, starting with this. So the next part, okay, after talking about the problem and the solution statement, is to go into depth. But how much into depth? Okay, you guys will have to figure out to put enough information not to bore the person. Remember, this is your visual aid to tell that story. So you have to give the most exciting things in the front. For example, okay, I was a bench scientist. I was creating particles of different sizes, trying to achieve statistical significance to show that one particular particle size reacts better to a cell type of a given origin. You do not want to put that kind of methodology and talk about your p-values right up here. No, you don't want to do that. Talk in very, very broad terms. What is your solution? Your solution can provide coverage for 50% of the existing problem, for example. Right? We want to talk about the significance of what seems like a little step that you take here can result in a lot. And there are different ways to describe your solution, right? What's a good way? Okay, I didn't even go down to the details of how it works, price, the pricing of your product, marketing, distribution, competitive advantage. There are different ways to deliver this. But the good way to deliver a message is through videos. Right? I'm going to show you this simple product. This is a USA company. It is a simple device, this size, you guys can see the size. You put it to the forehead, it measures 7 vital signs. It measures SpO2, it measures an ECG, right? Because it's conductive, you hold it by the finger. It measures a cuffless blood pressure, right? Measures and it derives the stress level, etc., etc. 7 vital signs. If you try to describe this product, right, to the uninitiated, non-medical background people, it's going to be very tough. The best way, like this company has done, is through a video. Let's take a look at their video. And the diagnosis is urgent care, right? So it's very clear with a simple video like this, right, what it does. Then the question could be, oh, I haven't raised money yet. How can I produce a professional video like this? Right? There are always ways. Let's take a look at this. Have you guys heard about whiteboard animation? Let's look at this product, okay, what it does.
Introducing Astro, the world's first plantar fasciitis treatment that enables your foot to heal while you walk by reducing the stress in your foot and ankle. Invented by a patient with plantar fasciitis, Astro is a simple and effective orthopedic device which reduces approximately 50% of the strain on the foot and ankle, enabling the plantar fascia to heal while you walk.
Right. It's just a 20-second example. Download the software like this, right? There could be trial version, paid version, but in no time, create your own animation to tell the story. And this can be part of your deck. This can be an additional file that you put at the side. The most important thing is that you want the person, whether you're presenting in person or not, to understand your story in the shortest possible time. Video is a good tool to do that. Okay. Now that you have told people what your product does, okay, it's time to compare with existing product. Very often, we find that entrepreneurs are stuck at this stage. Right? Very often, entrepreneurs make the mistake of thinking, I have no competition, which is never true. Every product has a competition. It could be a direct competitor or indirect competitor. It could be a substitute. It could be currently what the health system does without your product. Right? As simple as that. Here we go. Better. So, on the flip side, there are some people who also go out of the way to show that, trying to paint the entire competitive landscape. There's no hard and fast rule on how you show the competition. There are some products who try to compare in this fashion. We do not necessarily have to do this. There are some products who go to the further extent of trying to plot what looks like a sports statistics. You do not really have to do this. Steve Blank even published an article talking about how this is his preferred method of showing that his product is in the middle, currently competing, is a health education product, competing in adult learning, competing at higher education, corporate education, etc., etc., going to the extent of putting in the current competitors and showing how much money each of them have raised. There's no hard and fast rule. There are different ways to tell your story on who is the real competition. The most important is to let the investor, let the listener know that there is competition, but it's a weak competition. There is competition, but in an adjacent market. They are not so focused in solving what you want. For example, there is an existing solution selling to adults, but your solution sells to kids, sells to pediatric patients. Right? That could be a sufficient differentiator. So it's very important here to paint the difference in picture. Another way we have seen is the two-dimensional graph. Something that's good on the right side, something that's good is on the top. And people put a whole bunch of competition, all of them are bad, and putting the best up there. We've seen all that. The most important here is to be very clear, saying what you are not solving, what your competition is, current existing competition is good, indirect. Okay, it's good to be clear here, to say what is your real market. Talking about market, painting the competition and painting what kind of niche market you are tackling is important. Because your product should not suit and completely what a competitor is serving. It should be a very specific target audience who you want to tackle with first, right? And that goes into the market size. Market size, there are many ways to approach what is the market size. Okay, I'll give you an example. What's the market size? Market size essentially is saying that if everybody who's suffering from that disease if all of them buy from you and nobody else, what would your revenue be for that year? That's the market size. Take for example, right? This CPAP mask. Does everyone know this about this market? It's for patients with sleep apnea, right? What they do is that they have to put on a mask that provides continuous positive pressure, so that this mask is tied to a machine who gives positive pressure air, not necessarily oxygen, such that this person can sleep better, right? Otherwise, they will wake up in the middle of the night. The problem here is that the largest company in this market is ResMed, 8 billion in market cap, listed on NYSE. And they produce masks in only 6 to 8 sizes. And it doesn't fit everybody, right? For a startup coming in, and this particular startup, their product is saying that while your mask sizes only have 4 sizes, does not fit people, for example, with facial deformity, does not fit kids, right? And I'm going to come up with a 3D printed silicone mask that guarantees a perfect fit for everybody. Right? So the way they have approached this is to say that out of 6 billion market cap, 2 billion of it is for the mask, and but they cannot assume that their market cap is as close as 8. They cannot address the entire market addressed by the rest. That's because even at this stage, you have to be very realistic, saying that you have to find out how many % of the patients require a custom mask. And bear in mind that when you visit a doctor, right, patients will always want to bring back the mask and use the same one. It's only when you have difficulty with the mask, then you revisit to get a custom fit mask, because a custom fitting requires 2 days. So you cannot say that all 50% your market is 1 billion, because you have to now cut back and discount your market that 1 in 10 will revisit the doctor to get a custom fitted 3D printed mask. So your market has effectively gone from 2 billion down to 100 million. But we have to be realistic in stating this number. This is a top-down approach. There will be a bottom-up approach we will try to talk about later. Team. Some people put this as importantly as a second slide, because at the early stage of your startup, it's all about the team, right? One is said that the team will not change. Your team, if you find problems with the solution, you guys can solve another problem if you cannot find a solution. But the team does not change. So I give you an example. Okay, you put down the two co-founders, talk about what you guys have done, right? In this case, the 2 of them have been co-founders in a previous startup that in the ideal world have already been listed. They have years of experience in the adjacent company, right? The CEO had biz dev background, whereas the CTO had a technical academic background. And you want to put in what the best of your resume in a few lines over here. If they are interested about you, they can go on LinkedIn. You do not need to put a resume. Something else important to put down is the roadmap. When I talk about roadmap, it can mean a lot of things. It could be a product roadmap, right? In the case of biotech, and if your product is regulated, it could be the regulatory roadmap. You want to tell people that your product, based on your understanding, requires what level of regulatory approval. It could be CE, right? It could be FDA, Class 1, Class 2, right? It could be a PMA. So different level of regulatory approval requires perhaps different level of investment risk. But it's good to be clear upfront. Who are you going with first? Are you going with the European market first, or are you going to start with HSA first for the local market? You need some planning, some thought process there, and be ready to have a reason why you go with this market first. In your roadmap, you might be also thinking about partnership. After you completed your regulatory trials, how are you going to sell it? You cannot sell it one hospital at a time, not on every specialist door. You might need an indirect sales method where you work with a current distributor to distribute it, right? And a distributor, and you have to research who is this distributor. This distributor might have sold an adjacent product, but would like to sell your product because you can potentially give them more margin. Okay. Understanding that is important because you're understanding things from the distributor point of view as well. I'll talk about that later. Understanding the viewpoints from different players. And your product will not stop at just version 1, right? You have version 2, which gives you better margin, taking up the larger market. So you can talk about that here as well. Very important, at every deck there must be the ask. Who has watched Shark Tank? You guys watch Shark Tank, right? When you pitch, there's so many people. At the end, they got the perfect pitch, but they get disqualified because they forgot the ask. It's so easy to forget, right? The whole pitch is about asking for something, right? And the ask could be the amount that you need, right? Where you talk about how much you require. You may want to talk about how much equity and use it for how long, right? You might want to, for me it's important to understand what is this money used for. We do not need a budget projection right down to 2 decimal points for every month, right? In a full Excel spreadsheet, we do not need that. What I want to see is the breakdown and where it goes to HR, where it goes to product, where it goes to business development, right? It can be block figures, but by putting it here, right, it tells me that you have some thought process on the next 12 months, how many people you're going to hire. It tells me some thought process that you have identified 3 key conferences which will win you biz dev opportunities. It tells me that you're going to travel to a new market, perhaps to talk to the hospital on a regular basis, and you have thought out if you take LCC, how much will it cost? Staying in 3-star hotels, right? And product development, this also tells me that you have already contacted the Taiwanese manufacturer or local manufacturer in Ubi, and you've really spoken with them how much it costs to prototype and also to develop an integrated circuit board for your device. So this, as simple as it looks, there's a lot of thought process to putting this here. And when I see it, I could learn that this entrepreneur has given serious thought process. For me, this could be the most important slide, because so far I've not talked about revenue projection. I'm very particular that I believe that budget projection can be highly accurate. When someone projects revenue, the one thing I can be sure is that it will change. It will never be the same. But revenue, rather expense projection can be very accurate. So other considerations. Many people, many of us, okay, even at MBA schools, they do not teach some of these things that are in a term sheet or the investment agreement between you and the investor. Right? The investor's job, like me, is to look at these terms all the time, whereas a lot of people raising money could be raising the first time in their life, it could be the only time as well. You never know. Right? So understanding these terms becomes difficult, but I'll encourage anyone to read Venture Deals, right? From the Andreessen Horowitz team. Read Venture Deals. We'll get it on Kindle. When paying for a lawyer means 8,000 in tuition fees. You buy the book, it's just $8. So economic terms, simple things, okay? What I look for, there are many terms, but simple things is that I want to know how much the founder has in equity. A company that, let's say in the previous round, some angel came in and put $300,000 and who wanted 80% of the company, and the founder is left with 20%, something has to be done to correct that. Otherwise, there's no incentive for you. Right? For me, I expect early investors like myself, to be aligned with you. We are practically on the same team, because there will be many rounds of investors you have to deal with. You need someone on your corner who help you fight the battle and raise the right money. And for me, because I'm so early, I'm practically operating the company side by side with you. So for me, the founder needs to have equity. Employee stock options, you guys can read about it. Liquidation preference, participating, board seats, you guys can read about this. These are control. These are economic terms. Other business consideration. I did not go to business school, right? But it's not difficult to learn all these things. The most difficult thing to learn, I believe, is science and engineering. You can solve differential equation, you can do triple integration, right? You can program in MATLAB. It's no problem learning this stuff, right? You just have to go to Wikipedia. As simple as Wikipedia, understand, top line, margin, understanding different markets reimbursement scheme. This is something to do with the health system. Understanding that, for example, in the US, chronic home management reimbursement $40, right? $8 could be self-pay, co-payment. 32 goes to the provider. So understanding the differences in reimbursement in different jurisdictions is important. Right? That can be done by research. And then, this is also an interesting thing, buying decision maker. Health is multi-party decision making. When you want to sell a product, for example, a blood pressure monitor Bluetooth connected, right? Target audience, the 50-year-old CHF patient, chronic heart failure patient. Who do you sell to? Do you sell to that person and tell him that, hey, look, it can connect to the app. Let me show you. You have an Android phone, and let me show you how it works. They wouldn't use it. The only app they use on their phone is Facebook and WhatsApp. When you want to sell such a product, okay, you are selling to the decision maker in the family, which is typically the 25, 30-year-old to baby boomer age, 40, 50-year-old female in the family, who's making health decision, making sure that the family eats healthily, the elderly is well, the kids are taken care of, the husband is taken care of. You're selling to this person. So that is the decision maker, and you have to teach this person how to use the app to monitor the compliance of the elderly who may not be living in the same household. So selling to the customer, yet the decision maker is not them. And in fact, the elderly is a user, because the customer may be reimbursed. It could be under a subsidy scheme called CHAS, right? So it's very different. Customer, user, and the educator are all different players required. And sometimes the decision maker could be the specialist doctor. He has to be incentivized to push your product, because if he's in private practice, right, he's running a business. You have to think about, why would he push your product and not a competing product? Does he make more dollars? Right? Does he actually keep you out from his clinic rather than an opposing product that brings the patient back more often? There should be dollar and cents decisions made there as well. Okay, lifetime value, CAC. This is this warrants a lecture by itself. CAC is a customer acquisition cost. Lifetime value is the same customer leaking out of your system. I encourage you guys to read about this. It's very interesting. This is typically used in a consumer product, such as Lazada trying to acquire a customer. Right? They are very important. This is a very important number for them, for e-commerce. But because health products are ongoingly, are more and more so marketed directly to consumer as an OTC, it becomes important to consider OTC as a viable distribution model instead of just through the doctor. So we have to know this. And then support from investor. This is also important for me, that because I'm so early in the game, right, with you, that what do you need from the investor? It should be beyond just the capital. What you need, if it's just capital, it might be more easily available through a grant in Singapore, right? That will have impact on whether you set up a company here, Hong Kong, Delaware, or is it an SPV in elsewhere. And the partnership with MNC is also important. The advisory network that you want to demand from your investor is also important. Remember, we are always looking for beyond capital. At the early stage of a company, when you're looking for $50,000 to $300,000, many people can write the account check, including NRF. Right? But what you want is an investor who can give you an advisory network, who can help you connect to an MNC, right? Who can help you plan the Series A, the next round, and the ultimate exit. What you want is customers, right? Capital, and also the early investors is just part of your team. Right? The ultimate goal is not just that round. So the take home, okay, for us, what we like to see is that through this exercise, the pitch, we are not looking for specific slides. We're looking for knowledge actually. We want to know how much you know about your customers, how much do you know about the distribution channel, and the particular market health system that you're trying to sell into. It's a test of the knowledge, right? Because if you know your customer, your pain point, and how to deliver and solve their problem, it tells me that you will win in the market. Understand that this is multi-party. I stressed it many times. We want to see a realistic action plan, such as through distribution, B2B sales instead of direct to consumer, which is more costly. We are looking for a startup that is seeking an investor for what I call the investor startup fit. Because my skills may not be suitable for what you are trying to sell, right? Vice versa, maybe it's better for you to take the money from somebody else. And exit for investor. The investor is putting in money so that they can sell the shares during an M&A, during an IPO. So some thought process has to be put into that. We don't expect you to say that in 2 years' time you IPO. But some thought has to be put into that. And the most important thing is that business is less complicated than science. The most important statement here. If you can learn science, you can learn anything. So I thank you for your attention.
Would you like to answer a few questions? Anyone wants to ask a few questions? Please go ahead. Anyone?
How many pages or how much video? How much time do you have to make an impression when you, let's say you're sending your pitch deck just to get that first meeting with the VC?
Go ahead and send a pitch deck. Sometimes it is send a pitch deck to get a meeting, right? And the first pitch deck, you will not be able to put charts, tables to describe everything with decimal points. Try to hit some of the key things to show your understanding of the scale of the problem. At the initial stage, you have to again assume that the audience is very general, a layman who knows nothing about biotech. Right? If you approach it that way and start painting about the economic potential, because they're trying to make some money, right, usually, then it's easier. Yeah. What you want is to paint the opportunity for that conversation. Show your knowledge, show the market potential.
So the diving into the videos, like things that seem a bit more high risk to you, do you think you have enough chance even in an email, or those are to kick off a face-to-face meeting?
Put the video in. Put that 30-second, 1 minute video in.
Okay.
Yeah, try to make your videos within 1 minute, 15 seconds. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There's some studies to show that 1 minute videos work. So creating a video animation, yeah, it really helps.
Maybe we can ask more questions towards the end.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Eddie, for a wonderful talk. My name is Vincent, I'm also a correspondent from Biotech.Asia. Now I would like to introduce Dr. Tan Yen Chong, speaking from the perspective of the startups. Dr. Tan Yen Chong is a co-founder and the chief technologist of Etreca. Etreca is a biotechnology company focused on the development of novel therapeutics based on the deep understanding of human immune responses. He invented Etreca's immune repertoire capture technology while he was pursuing his dissertation research in William Robinson's laboratory at Stanford University. The immune repertoire capture is actually validated by multiple partnerships with major pharmaceutical companies, academic partners, as well as non-profit organizations. Dr. Tan is currently the head of a joint laboratory between Etreca and Genome Institute of Singapore, GIS, to advance Etreca's high-throughput single-cell and sequence-based analysis of human immune responses, which is critical in the discovery and development of immuno-oncology therapeutics. Dr. Tan is also interested in spinning off academic inventions into viable commercial entities and advises promising potential spin-offs within the GIS on intellectual property protection and business plans. And last but not least, Dr. Tan is the recipient of the A-star NSF scholarship and received his Bachelor of Science in Biology from Duke University and PhD in Immunology from Stanford University. Now, we'd like to invite Dr. Tan.
Can you hear me? Right, yeah. Thanks very much for the introduction. And so after Eddie's slides, I think there's quite a lot of overlap with what I'm saying. So hopefully you guys can take it as a reinforcement of some of the terms. Right. Alright, let's see what I have. So I think when you're trying to pitch to an investor, first of all you have to understand what the investor wants. Right? So what is it exactly that the investor wants? So I think what they want is a return on investment, which is true, right? I mean, I have never really seen a business, a company that succeeds but is in the red every single year, right? I don't think that's going to last for long. Right? So we're all in this because we want to have something that's successful, and to be successful, we have to make profits. And one thing you have to remember is that they hear a lot of pitches all the time, and what they're really trying to do here is to get them to have some confidence that we can deliver on what you are saying you want to do, so that you invest in you, right? And so how do you do that? Yeah, And so let's get to the aim of pitch deck. So what's the aim of pitch deck? Is that a pitch slide is usually anywhere from say 10 to 15 slides, and you want to keep it simple. And I think what Eddie has shown in his presentation is a perfect example of keeping it simple, right? It was very clear. Everything was on point, right? There was no distractions. What did Eddie say? Something about microparticles and the sizes, right? So none of that is there to distract from the message, right? You want to be really on point with message, but if the investor is interested, they'll definitely ask you more questions, and so you should answer them, right? And so for example, earlier talking with Leslie, we were talking about people were wondering what to put on the pitch deck, right? Should I show an Excel sheet of all the financial projections? My thinking is that you should keep it simple. Should just in broad terms what should be there. Just have for example G&A, how much is you're putting in there, how much you're putting in the research and the research team, for example, etc. But you should have all the details at the back of your hand, right? So if they ask for it, you can answer that. So I think of it as a pitch deck is is a sort of a 50,000-foot view of what they're trying to do here. So in very simple terms, to explain what the problem is, what they're trying to solve, right? But behind that, there's all this research that we have done, this huge amounts of work that you have done. Think about a problem and how you want to go about solving that. It doesn't have to be in the pitch deck, but you should definitely know it. And I think a lot of the work that you have done there, when an investor is interested in the second meeting, they will ask for some of these details. For example, want to know more about competition, for example, or maybe they want to know more about technology or whatever it is that you are doing. And of course, you can easily get those up into a pitch deck. And so what to include in a slide deck? So telling a story. So here I have an example here. You don't have to have everything here. You can have more things. The order doesn't have to be what I'm putting in there. This is just an example, right? So what I've done is to start up a company, which is just a simple one line, simple statement, because they help people to understand what kind of company you are. For example, Atrica is an oncology company, right? So it helps them to know, okay, we're trying to develop drugs and not say diagnostics, for example. I think that helps because investors, they're looking for a certain kind of startups to put in their portfolio, right? So you have to make sure that it's a good fit there, And then, usually, the story goes on with, what is the problem, how big the market is. I think there always has to be a big addressable market because the market is too small, right? For example, let's say if you are developing a drug, for example, already, the average cost for developing a drug, people say it's 200 million USD, right? So if the market is really small, the question becomes, would people really invest in this, right? And so that's a big problem. That's why the FDA has an accelerated program for orphan drugs, right? Because that's a problem because it's just not profitable. What is your solution? And what are you doing here that is better than the competition, right? So you have to have a competitive advantage because the competition is already there. They're already doing it, and you are a virtual company. You haven't started yet. Right, so you have to have an advantage. If not, you're going to be behind them, and you're always going to stay behind them. And so what I was doing was a startup that had a technology in it. So we had some data to show, right? So usually, if you have some IP, spinning up from the lab, you definitely have some data. So think carefully about what you want to show there. Non-confidential data. If you haven't filed a patent yet, please go and file it. Because any disclosure here can damage your chances of getting a patent. Okay.
Yeah. I can't hear you. Can you speak?
Oh, can't hear me? Is this better now?
Yeah.
Okay. And the team. So the team is extremely important too, right? Because you can have all the best plans in the world, but if your team cannot execute on it, you've never done it before, right? You spend more time going around the circle than going forward, it's not going to work. And things like financial projections, timeline, how long does it take you to do this, and what sort of money you need for it, and what are you going to do with the money, right? All these are very important things that people are always thinking about, right? For example, if let's say you go to the NRF, we know how much money they typically give out, and asking for $20 million. Well, I think that's a wrong fit there, right away, right? Yeah, and for your slide deck, try to keep it simple, and speak simply about the promise that is, and help the investor to get what exactly the problem is, what is your solution, and why is this better than the competition. Okay, and Since I put on this side, maybe I should turn over here so you guys can hear me. So, what not to do, right? I'm gonna have a couple of slides on what not to do, then a couple of slides on what I think you should do. So, overly optimistic projections. I think you should avoid that. Everybody, has a good sense of how long it takes to do certain things and how much time and money it needs, that you need to do that, right? So if your projections are far from the norm, it raises some questions about you and whether or not you have the ability to do what you just described. So let's try answering this question, right? Average time to regulatory approval is 3 years, but yours is 1. Can you explain why you're smarter than the rest of the planet? Right. So in investors' minds, I guess this raises a couple of questions, right? Has this guy done this before? Does he know what he's doing? And I'm going to cast an eye, I'm going to dig deeper into his financial projections and how much he needs, right? Because he says he needs say 10 million, but he needs 3 years to do this. So isn't it more like $30 million, right? So all these things can potentially derail your pitch, right? Because you're trying to build a story, and then you stop halfway and you spend 10 minutes arguing about, no, I can do it in 1 year because I'm smarter than the rest of the planet. That's not going to fly very well. Okay, and a lot of people have hockey stick projections, right? Because if you just do a very simple, I'm going to get extra 2% market share every year, it's exponential, right? So everybody has hockey sticks, and so please beware of hockey sticks, and a Buzz Lightyear there. So yeah, I think projections that are not grounded in reality risk derailing the flow of a pitch deck because you get interrupted, asked about all these questions, and also I think it hurts the credibility. There's another thing. I think Eddie talked about it, right? By the way, this is what not to do. Okay, this is part of the what not to do section. So if you have no competitors, either there is no market, that's why no one else is out there doing it because they've all folded trying. Okay, or you have not done your homework, right? Sticking your head in the sand does not work. When wishful thinking hits reality, reality wins all the time, And I think you should respect your competitors and understand them, understand what they're trying to do, what their model is, right? Which areas are succeeding, which areas they're not, because the more business intelligence you have, the better. And what to do. So in this pitch deck, what you're trying to do here is to have a compelling argument that you have identified a real market need. You have a workable solution that is better than the competition. And in many cases that that is your technology or your IP that you have there. And of course that you have the right team that is able to bring this to market. And so please do your market research, right? So previously I had some slides on please don't do any wishful thinking. And the way you should go about this is, as Eddie was saying, right? This is kind of a test of what you know. I think it's, I think a lot of it is about the plan, but a lot of it is about you yourself. I think, what they're judging is also you. Please have, place your numbers on actual data, such as market reports or the abstracts. Market reports or market report abstracts. The reason why I say that is market reports are $5,000 USDs, and so the abstract is free. So go for the free things. And of course, on similar deals down the space, if you can manage to get that data. And if you're going to show a hockey stick graph, which I think many people will show, please state your assumptions behind the graph because it makes it more believable this way, right? So instead of saying to infinity and beyond, if you say, well, this was company X growth, right? Company X is in this space too, and I think that makes it a lot more believable. And also, I think you need to go in on your competitive edge. People want to understand, why are you better than competition? Why should I put my money in you, right? Are you really the right person to do this? And so please articulate this clearly, and often, at least for what I was doing, the edge is the technology or the IP, and some of these things can be highly technical, right? It's things done in the lab, and if you are the person who invented it, you spend the past 3-4 years thinking about it, right? You understand it on the level that nobody else does, right? Just like when you're say writing something, for example, a lot of times there's a lot of assumptions that you don't put in there. because you already know it. So you assume the audience knows it, but they don't, right? And so what you want to do is to be able to explain it in very layman terms as to why your technology is much better than everything else out there. And the thing is critical that the audience does get it, right? It's very important because if they don't get it, they're not going to invest in you. And also a timeline. So I'm not sure. So this is a typical timeline, at least when I was in the US. I'm not sure if it's similar here. They want to exit in a certain time frame. Usually it's 5 to 7 years. Can be different based on the investor. And the money is tranched. Typically lasts for 2 to 3 years. So if it lasts for 2 years, you want to. In the ideal world, you want to raise money for the next round with 6 months worth of runway to spare. And assuming that it takes you 6 months to be able to raise that money, that means that you have to think about it in such a way that if I only have 2 years, right, in a year's time I need to be raising money. So what data do I need to get by the end of that 1 year so that can be able to go back to people and raise more money, right? And so the question is, what value are you building in this time frame? Because after a year, people ask you, so what have you done? I said, well, I kind of twiddled my thumbs and research is still ongoing. The question would then come to, why haven't you built value in this preceding time? So you need to think about all of this, because I think it's one thing to get, say pitch successfully and get your first, get the money in. You have to think about the next one and next one and next one, right? And it's just within the realm of reality, right? And also the use of proceeds to create. You have to use it to create value, please. It shouldn't be spent on a Ferrari. And ideally, you want to get to the next value inflection point. So for what I was doing, which is drug development, for example, the next value inflection point would be get a drug to say a preclinical stage, or the phase 1 or the phase 2, where it's very clear what sort of value you have there. Because there's been other deals that's been done, so you can judge that, right? So imagine if, say, after 10 years, you're still in R&D. After 10 years' time, you're still in R&D, it casts a lot of doubt on whether or not you're actually able to do it, right? And of course, you have to create more value than what is spent. And one question people will ask is, can your team actually deliver? I think the team is actually very important, because I think they invest not only in an idea, but also in a team. And you are judged along with your idea when you pitch. Being prepared, I think, definitely reflects very well on you, right? If you go there and they ask questions and they say, oh, actually, I don't know, let me get back to you on that. I think it's okay if you answer that for a couple of questions, but for every question they ask you, and that is your only answer, right? I think it just doesn't reflect well on you. And it's key to get teammates with relevant skill sets, right? If you're building a drug company, it's not clear to me that you want to get somebody, who has spent the past 20 years on a internet startup, for example. So, and also at the different stages of a startup's growth, you need different kinds of people. And please make sure that you get teammates with relevant skill sets. And take feedback to heart. So I think different investors will have different opinions on, how you should improve things or what they think should be done, sort of data you need to get. But typically, there's a very common set. And that's the set that you should be targeting and take the feedback to heart. Right, for example, if you pitch to 10 people and your complaint is, but all of them don't get why my idea is so great, right? It might be because you haven't been able to articulate, why you have something really good there, right? Maybe because it was too technical or for whatever other reasons, right? And so please collect data and adjust your plans of pitch accordingly. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, yeah. Hello, thank you, yeah. So, one thing which is really interesting and which Vincent left behind to tell is that his company recently in November 2015 got a $56 million Series A funding. So, and it's amazing to know that it's something which came out of your dissertation research. So, gives a lot of hope for people like us who do PhD and we think it doesn't go anywhere. So, amazing. So you've heard, and he's telling us to take his feedback to heart. So please, hope you heard all his points. And if any of you have any doubts, is this a time to ask? Or if not, you can definitely talk to them during the networking session and ask. Is there anything anyone would like to ask?
I think the IP is actually one of the most important things that you can have because it's a virtual company. Other than your team, the only thing that you have that is real is your IP, right? And you can have the IP done in many different ways. You can either through your OTL, Office of Technology Licensing, and they will go through the usual method of taking a manuscript and turning it into a patent. Or you can think carefully about your business plans, right? What is it that you want to do? And make sure that the claims in your patents and the specifications in the patent both support your business plans and what you're trying to do, right? For example, if what you're trying to do is making a drug, for example, and your patent goes on and on about, say, diagnostics, right? It just doesn't make sense. I think there's actually quite an art to IP strategies and patenting. It's actually very important, and it's definitely things that you should think about way before anything is published. You should be thinking about it at the same time that you think it's valuable that you want to start a company.
In terms of your communication with investors, what was the most effective thing you did, and what was the biggest mistake you made, and how did you correct it?
Effectiveness in communication. Well, I think your investors. I think it's important that your investors are aligned with you. That's very, very important. That both of you are working towards the same goals, right? And different investors have different things that are important to them. So I think number one is important that your investor is aligned with what you're doing, and number two is you should always keep them appraised of and regularly updated. And for example, not just at the board meetings, right? To have them prepared in advance for the board meetings.
Hi. So before we regrettably end this workshop, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Eddie Lee and Dr. Tan Yen Chong for taking their time and to guide us through this workshop, as well as to give us a good, valuable insights from the perspective of an investor as well as a startup. Our heartfelt thanks to Yura, our venue sponsor, and NUS Enterprise. Last but not least, I'd like to thank all of you here for being such an amazing audience.